Ireland, our lovely green island of saints and scholars, has a dark side that nobody wants to discuss. We love to imagine ourselves as a peaceful nation, a land where the worst crime is stealing someone's pint or parking in front of the church on Sunday. But the Garda statistics tell a different story, lad. Certain towns across this island have crime rates that would make you think twice about walking home after dark. Drug trafficking, violent assault, organised crime, antisocial behaviour so persistent it drives families from their homes. These problems exist. They're documented in official figures, and pretending otherwise helps nobody. Today I'm going to take you through 10 towns, one from each Irish region, where the statistics are brutal and the reality is worse. So subscribe and let's start. Number 10. Letterkenny, the County Donegal, Ulster/Donegal region. We begin in the northwest, in a town that serves as the commercial capital of Donegal, despite not being the county town. Letterkenny has grown rapidly over recent decades, transforming from a small market town into a regional centre serving the entire northwest. But that growth has brought problems that the town struggles to contain. The crime statistics for Letterkenny tell a concerning story. The Garda division, covering the town, recorded over 4,500 incidents in the most recent annual figures, a rate significantly higher than the national average when adjusted for population. The breakdown reveals patterns that residents know too well. Drug offences up 42% over 5 years, assault causing harm up 31%, out of public order offences consistently among the highest in the country outside Dublin. The drug situation in Letterkenny has deteriorated dramatically since 2015. What was once a town where cannabis was the primary concern has become a distribution hub for cocaine and heroin that serves the entire northwest. The Gardaí have made significant seizures, including one haul valued at over €3 million in 2023, but the supply continues uninterrupted. The demand exists because addiction has taken hold. The town's position near the border creates specific challenges that inland towns don't face. The border provides escape routes for criminals operating across jurisdictions. The different policing systems in the Republic and North create coordination challenges that organised crime exploits. Letterkenny has become a waypoint for drug distribution networks that use the border to complicate enforcement. The nightlife in Letterkenny has earned a reputation that extends across the northwest. The concentration of pubs and clubs in a compact area creates flashpoints every weekend, with assault rates that peak dramatically on Friday and Saturday nights. The hospital emergency department treats injuries that tell their own story about what happens when the pubs close and the streets fill with intoxicated young people. The antisocial behaviour in certain estates has reached levels that make normal life difficult for residents. The stories are consistent. Young people gathering to drink and take drugs, intimidating anyone who objects, vandalising property with impunity. The Gardaí respond when called, but can't maintain constant presence. The residents either tolerate the behaviour or leave if they can afford to. But context matters, and I won't pretend Letterkenny is a war zone. The vast majority of residents go about their lives safely. The crime concentrates in specific areas and specific hours. A family living in the quieter parts of town experiences a different reality than the statistics suggest. The danger is real, but unevenly distributed. Number 9. Longford Town, County Longford, North Midlands region. Moving to the Midlands, to a county town that has gained notoriety for crime problems disproportionate to its modest size. Longford has around 10,000 residents, yet its crime statistics compete with towns 3 times larger. And the numbers have made national headlines and sparked debates about policing, social policy, and the nature of Irish society. The recorded crime figures for Longford Garda Division are startling when normalised for population. The rate of assault causing harm per 1,000 residents is nearly double the national average. Drug offences per capita exceed Dublin in some categories. The robbery rate has spiked dramatically, with certain years showing increases over 50%. The explanation for Longford's crime problems is contested, with different groups offering different analyses. Some point to social deprivation, arguing that lack of opportunity creates conditions where crime flourishes. Others point to drug addiction, particularly to crack cocaine, which has devastated certain communities. Still others point to organised crime groups who've established operations in a town where enforcement resources are limited. The direct provision centres in Longford have become part of the discourse around crime, though the reality is more complicated than simple narratives suggest. The town has hosted significant asylum seeker populations, and some incidents have involved centre residents. But the statistics show that most crime involves Irish nationals, and scapegoating immigrant communities obscures rather than explains the underlying problems. The drug market in Longford has characteristics that distinguish it from other small towns. The availability of crack cocaine at relatively low prices has created an addict population whose need for money drives acquisitive crime. The shoplifting, the car break-ins, the burglaries that plague certain areas trace directly to addiction that requires constant funding. Treating the crime without treating the addiction addresses symptoms rather than causes. The intimidation in Longford has affected how people live in ways that statistics don't fully capture. Business owners have spoken publicly about threatening behaviour when they try to prevent theft. Residents describe avoiding certain streets at certain hours. The fear shapes behaviour, even among those who've never been direct victims. The Garda response has included targeted operations, increased patrols, and coordination with national units dealing with organised crime. These efforts have produced arrests and seizures, but the underlying conditions that generate crime remain largely unchanged. Longford's problems won't be solved by policing alone. On number 8, Drogheda, County Louth, Northeast Region. Crossing to the northeast, to a town that has experienced violence so extreme it made international headlines. Drogheda's drug feud has produced murders, dismemberments, and an atmosphere of fear that transformed how residents think about their town. The feud began around 2018 as a conflict between rival drug-dealing factions. What started as competition for territory escalated into warfare that has claimed multiple lives and left others permanently scarred. The murder of Cian Mulready Woods in 2020, a 17-year-old whose dismembered remains were found in different locations, shocked Ireland and forced national attention onto Drogheda's crisis. The crime statistics for Drogheda reflect both the feud and the underlying drug market that fuels it. The Garda division recorded over 6,000 incidents in recent annual figures. Drug offences have increased by over 60% since the feud began. Weapons seizures, including firearms, have reached levels unprecedented for a town this size. The numbers tell part of the story, but the murders tell it more viscerally. The geography of Drogheda's crime concentrates in specific estates where the feuding factions have bases. Residents of these areas live with tension that outsiders can barely comprehend. Cars burned, houses attacked, children who can't play outside because the risk of being caught in violence is too real. The communities affected are effectively held hostage by criminals who grew up among them. The Gardaí have dedicated enormous resources to Drogheda, while including armed support units maintaining visible presence in affected areas. The operations have produced significant arrests and convictions. Leading figures in both factions have been imprisoned. But the violence hasn't stopped entirely, and the drug trade continues despite the enforcement pressure. The impact on normal life in Drogheda extends beyond the directly affected estates. The town's reputation has suffered, affecting business and tourism. Parents worry about children growing up in proximity to gang culture. The sense that violence could erupt unpredictably has changed how people think about their town. But Drogheda is more than its crime problems. The town has a long history, a vibrant commercial centre, and communities that work hard to maintain normality despite the challenges. And most residents experience Drogheda as a safe place to live. The danger is concentrated and specific, not general and pervasive. Number 7. Limerick City, County Limerick, Midwest Region. Limerick's reputation for violence preceded the current era by decades, earning nicknames like Stab City that residents resent but can't entirely refute. The city has worked hard to change its image, with genuine success in some respects, but the underlying problems haven't disappeared. The historical context matters for understanding Limerick's situation. The drug feuds that plagued the city from the 1990s through the 2000s produced a generation of violence that peaked with multiple murders annually. The Gardaí response, particularly through Operation Anvil and targeted enforcement, eventually disrupted the major feuding gangs. Many leading figures were imprisoned or killed. Subscribe now to prove these videos actually help and make sense. Or keep believing Ireland is all leprechauns and friendly pubs, while crime statistics tell a different story. Your choice entirely. But the current statistics show that Limerick's problems persist in evolved forms. The Garda division recorded over 11,000 incidents in recent annual figures. Drug offences remain significantly above national averages. Assault rates, while improved from the worst years, still exceed comparable cities. The organised crime that once operated openly has become more sophisticated and less visible, but hasn't disappeared. The specific estates that generated Limerick's violent reputation have seen investment and intervention that changed their character. Moyross, Southill, and St. Mary's Park. These names once signified danger that kept outsiders away entirely. The regeneration programs have demolished the worst housing, relocated families, and attempted to break the concentration of disadvantage. The results are mixed, but real. The drug market in Limerick has adapted to enforcement pressure by becoming more diffuse and harder to target. The days of visible dealing in specific locations have given way to phone-based operations that are harder to detect. The supply continues, the addiction continues, and the crimes that fund addiction continue. The youth violence in Limerick has attracted particular concern, with incidents involving teenagers that suggest generational transmission of criminal involvement. The videos that occasionally circulate showing young people engaged in violence and intimidation reveal a culture that persists despite intervention efforts. Number 6. Waterford City, County Waterford, Southeast Region. Moving to the southeast, to Ireland's oldest city, where crime problems have grown less dramatically than elsewhere, but remain concerning for residents who remember quieter times. Waterford's statistics reveal patterns that echo larger cities despite its relatively modest size. The Garda division covering Waterford recorded over 7,000 incidents in recent annual figures. The breakdown shows familiar patterns. Drug offences trending upward, assault rates elevated compared to national averages, public order incidents concentrated in specific areas and times. The numbers are worse than a decade ago and show no sign of returning to previous levels. The drug situation in Waterford has deteriorated significantly, with crack cocaine arriving relatively recently, but establishing quickly. The addiction services report increasing demand. The Gardaí report increasing arrests. The hospitals report increasing overdoses. The pattern that devastated other towns is repeating in Waterford, with depressing predictability. The city centre has experienced antisocial behaviour that affects how people use public spaces. The reports are consistent: groups gathering to drink and take drugs, confrontational behaviour toward passers-by, vandalism and intimidation that persist despite Garda attention. The businesses in affected areas describe impact on trade. The residents describe impact on quality of life. The specific areas of concern in Waterford include estates that have featured in crime reporting for years. The concentration of disadvantage creates conditions where crime flourishes. The lack of opportunity creates conditions where criminal enterprise offers appeal. The cycle perpetuates across generations despite intervention efforts. The Gardaí in Waterford have implemented community policing approaches that aim to build relationships rather than simply enforce. These efforts have some success, with residents in affected areas expressing more willingness to cooperate than in the past. But cooperation doesn't eliminate the underlying conditions that generate crime. Number 5. Tralee, County Kerry, Southwest Region. Kerry's county town might seem an unlikely entry on this list, with its association with tourism and traditional culture rather than serious crime. But Tralee's statistics reveal problems that contradict its pleasant image, problems that residents know too well. The Garda division, covering Tralee, recorded concerning figures that have increased steadily over recent years. Drug offences have risen by over 50% in 5 years. Assault rates exceed what the town's size would predict. The public order incidents, particularly around the town centre at night, have become predictable enough that residents adjust their behaviour to avoid them. The drug market in Tralee has grown from cannabis and pills to include cocaine and heroin at levels that weren't seen a decade ago. The Gardaí have made significant seizures, suggesting substantial supply flowing through the town. The addiction has created a population whose criminal activity funds their habit, driving burglaries and thefts that affect businesses and residents. The nightlife in Tralee generates crime statistics that peak dramatically on weekends. The concentration of pubs in a compact area creates conditions for confrontation. The emergency department treats the results. The Gardaí manage the aftermath. The pattern repeats week after week. The specific estates in Tralee that feature in crime reporting have characteristics familiar from other towns. Concentrated disadvantage, limited opportunity, families struggling against conditions that make success difficult. The crime that emerges from these conditions affects the estates most directly, but spreads into areas that consider themselves separate and safe. The response in Tralee has included community initiatives that attempt to address underlying causes, youth programs, addiction services, family support. The interventions exist and do some good, but the scale of intervention doesn't match the scale of need, and the problems persist despite genuine effort. Number 4. Athlone, County Westmeath, Midlands region. At the geographic centre of Ireland, straddling the Shannon between Westmeath and Roscommon, Athlone has experienced crime growth that its residents find both alarming and frustrating. The town's central location and good transport links have made it attractive to organised crime as well as legitimate business. The Garda division covering Athlone recorded over 5,000 incidents in recent annual figures. The drug offences have increased dramatically, with cocaine and crack becoming established despite the town's distance from ports and borders. The assault rate has risen steadily. The vehicle crime has reached levels that affect how residents think about parking and security. The organised crime presence in Athlone has been documented through major operations and seizures. The town's position on transport networks makes it attractive for distribution operations serving the Midlands and West. The criminals who've established operations bring violence and intimidation alongside the drugs they sell. The specific areas of concern in Athlone include estates that feature repeatedly in crime reporting. The patterns are familiar: disadvantage concentrated, opportunity limited, criminal activity offering income that legitimate work can't match. The young people growing up in these conditions face choices that shouldn't be necessary. The town centre has experienced antisocial behaviour that affects commercial viability. The reports describe intimidation of shoppers and staff, theft that occurs with apparent impunity, street drinking and drug use that make areas unpleasant or frightening. The businesses affected describe considering relocation or closure. Number 3. Cork City, County Cork, South Region, Ireland's second city, has crime problems proportionate to its size, which means problems that affect thousands of people daily. Cork's statistics place it second only to Dublin in absolute numbers, and the rates in certain areas compete with anywhere in the country. The Garda division covering Cork City recorded over 18,000 incidents in recent annual figures. The breakdown reveals patterns that residents recognise. Drug offences trending consistently upward, assault rates elevated in specific areas, organised crime operating with sophistication that challenges enforcement. The drug feuds in Cork have produced violence that, while less publicised than Dublin or Limerick, has claimed lives and terrorised communities. The murders connected to drug disputes have occurred with regularity. The intimidation and violence, short of murder, occurs far more frequently. The affected communities live with fear that outsiders can't fully appreciate. The specific areas of concern in Cork include estates in the north side and south side that have featured in crime reporting for decades: Knocknaheeny, Mayfield, Duntogher. These names carry associations that shape how residents are perceived and how they perceive themselves. The regeneration efforts have had some success, but the underlying problems persist. The organised crime in Cork operates with increasing sophistication, using violence strategically rather than chaotically. The major figures maintain distance from direct involvement while commanding networks that distribute drugs throughout the region. The Gardaí know who they are. Proving it in court is a different matter. The city centre experiences antisocial behaviour that concentrates around specific locations and times. The Patrick Street area, the Quays, certain parks and spaces become difficult or dangerous at predictable hours. The response involves increased Garda presence, but presence doesn't eliminate the underlying issues. Number 2. Tallaght, County Dublin, South Dublin region. Within the Dublin metropolitan area, specific locations have crime concentrations that exceed even the city's elevated averages. Tallaght, serving as South Dublin's major centre, has statistics that distinguish it from surrounding areas and make it one of the most crime-affected locations in Ireland. The Garda division covering Tallaght recorded over 14,000 incidents in recent annual figures, a rate that places it among the highest in the country. The drug offences are particularly elevated, with the area serving as both market and distribution point for substances serving a wide catchment. The assault rate significantly exceeds national averages. The robbery figures would be concerning for a population twice the size. The history of Tallaght explains some of its current challenges. The area grew rapidly from the 1970s as Dublin expanded, with housing estates built faster than the social infrastructure to support them. The mistakes of that era created concentrated disadvantage that persists despite subsequent investment. The crime that emerged has proved resistant to intervention. The organised crime presence in Tallaght connects to wider Dublin networks while maintaining local characteristics. The feuds between criminal factions have produced violence that affects specific estates intensely. The drug dealing operates openly in some locations despite Garda attention. The intimidation of witnesses makes prosecution difficult. The youth involvement in crime in Tallaght has attracted particular concern, with incidents involving teenagers that suggest early recruitment into criminal activity. The gang culture that exists offers identity and income to young people who see limited, legitimate alternatives. Breaking that appeal requires offering something better, which hasn't happened at sufficient scale. Number 1. Dublin Inner City, Dublin Central Region. And so we arrive at my number 1, the location with the most severe crime statistics in Ireland, the place where the numbers are genuinely brutal by any standard. Dublin's inner city, particularly the North Inner City, has crime concentrations that would be considered crisis level anywhere in Europe. The Garda division covering Dublin's North Inner City recorded figures that dwarf anywhere else in Ireland. The assault rate per thousand population is approximately 3 times the national average. The drug offences are the highest in the country by a significant margin. The robbery rate exceeds the next highest area by over 50%. The statistics describe a reality that residents live daily. The history of the North Inner City explains the current situation through layers of disadvantage accumulated over generations. The area never recovered from deindustrialization that eliminated working-class employment. The heroin epidemic of the 1980s devastated communities that were already struggling. The subsequent evolution into polydrug use and dealing has maintained and intensified the problems. The organised crime operating in Dublin's inner city connects to international networks with reach across Europe and beyond. The scale of drug importation and distribution dwarfs provincial operations. The violence associated with this trade, while often contained within criminal circles, occasionally spills into public spaces with consequences for anyone nearby. The specific locations within the North Inner City that concentrate crime are well known to residents and Gardaí alike. The flat complexes where dealing operates openly, the streets where users gather, the corners where violence erupts with predictable unpredictability. The geography of crime is mapped in memories, even when it changes in practice. The impact on normal life in affected areas is profound. Families describe fear that shapes daily decisions. Parents describe keeping children indoors. Elderly residents describe isolation created by fear of leaving home. The statistics measure incidents. They don't measure the constriction of life that crime causes. The response has included unprecedented Garda resources, community policing initiatives, social interventions, and political attention. The efforts have produced some results. The murder rate has declined from the worst years. Some notorious operations have been disrupted, but the underlying conditions remain. and the crime continues at levels that would be considered emergency anywhere else. And there you have it now. 10 towns and areas across Ireland where crime statistics tell stories that tourism brochures omit and politicians prefer not to discuss. I've given you the numbers, explained the contexts, described the realities that residents face. But let me be clear about what this list means and doesn't mean. These places are dangerous relative to Irish norms, which remain relatively safe by international standards. The crime that seems alarming here would be considered moderate in many American or European cities. Ireland is still a safe country to live in, even in its most troubled areas. The people who live in these places aren't criminals or victims uniformly. They're ordinary people doing their best in challenging circumstances. The majority in every location I've mentioned go about their lives safely. The crime concentrates in specific streets, specific hours, specific populations. Avoiding those concentrations is possible for anyone with the knowledge and flexibility to do so. The causes of crime in these places are complex and contested. Poverty, addiction, family breakdown, lack of opportunity, failed policy, historical disadvantage, all play roles that differ by location. Simple explanations satisfy nobody who actually understands the situations. Simple solutions don't exist. What does exist is the need for honesty about conditions that affect real people. Pretending Ireland has no crime problems helps nobody. Acknowledging where problems concentrate at least allows resources and attention to focus appropriately. These 10 places need more than they're getting. Whether they'll receive it depends on decisions not yet made. I've told you the truth, as the statistics reveal it. What anyone does with that truth is their own affair. But at least now you know what the numbers say about the places where crime in Ireland is genuinely serious. If you like this video, do not forget to subscribe.